All right, we are trying something new. Um, and as always, I'm trying to get my voice. And it's Sunday, and I don't like recording on Sundays at all. So, and I'm also really bummed. This is my bummy outfit. I'm not feeling myself, but my mom got me nothing but cake, and they have gluten-free options. So I'm very happy about that. Mm, mhm. This is good. Okay. It says I'm live. It says I'm live, guys. So I got Dale tea. This is crazy. A Dale tea warming up. And I made my own matcha this morning, which was significantly better. Just, I spent more money to get all the supplies, which made me frustrated. I spent like $20 total because I had to get the oat milk, Gabi. Then I had to get the matcha. And I didn't get to go to a place that I really wanted to go to get the matcha, which is be like one of the tea stores that I frequent, so I can just get matcha without having to pay like the exorbitant prices that companies put on you using a matcha or whatever. So I didn't get that. I did get matcha and sweet cream, sweet foam, because that is a must. If you don't think that's a must, then I don't really know how to talk to you. Mm. And I found this new bike trail. So excited for. I found this new bike trail. And it's perfect for when it's hot outside. The problem with me is when I go biking, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so hot, you know, and I don't want to, it's just really hot. And it like it's sweaty and it's gross. I try to do it earlier in the day, but like early in my day, I like to chill and relax. So that fucks it up. But I found this one and it goes right through the woods and most of it is shaded. So it doesn't matter what the temperature is outside because I'm not burning my skin. I don't know if you can see this, but I still have like tan lines from my scarf. I didn't get any tan lines today, which is the first time I've gone outdoor biking this like summer and not got tan lines. And I really love it. So super excited. We're going to get into our little intro. And then we got a lot to talk about today because the world, mm, the people we wanted to hear from for Love Island have been quiet. The people we didn't want to hear from Love Island have not been quiet. So let's run that. Quick interruption before we get back to the chaos. You know how every recommendation list somehow ends up being the exact same books? Yeah, we're not doing that. That's why I opened Blake's Indie Author Bookstore, an online bookstore dedicated to indie authors and the stories that deserve a whole lot more attention. I spend my time finding books from independent authors so you don't have to scroll for hours hoping that the algorithm gets it right. Whether you're looking for romance, fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, or something that completely surprises you, there's a good chance your next favorite book isn't sitting on the front table of a big box bookstore. It's sitting in an indie author's catalog waiting to be discovered. So if you're ready to read outside the bestseller bubble, visit Blake's Indie Author Bookstore and see what you have been missing. Because around here, indie stories find their readers. Hi, Unbothered fam, and welcome back to another episode of Basically Unbothered, where this week we're actually gonna be pretty fucking bothered because people are just, I don't know what happened this week. I don't know if everybody just said, all right, where can we be stupid? We can be stupid here. We can be stupid here. Cool, 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 cool. Attack. It was just insane. I've had to like stop some of this, like not everything I can talk about. Like it's really been kind of insane. And so I do still want to give you guys, the opportunities to like hear what's going on or whatever. We have it being live. So there is a chat. You get to watch this one live. I'm testing it out because everybody's like, you should stream, you should stream, you should stream. And I'm like, absolutely, I should not. I spend enough time talking podcasting as it is. But I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll podcast live for recaps and we'll see how that goes. Um, I don't know. We'll see. But let's kind of get into our first topic because I don't really have that much going on in my life right now. Trying to think. I really don't. I really don't. It's been a pretty chill week other than the fact that I cannot stand the way I look today. But again, this is my bummy day, so chill on me. Ooh, chill on me and my bummy day. Like, leave me alone. Why did I try to do this on a Sunday? I don't know. Guys, the reason why I am on a Sunday is because I was on Classic Sam's stream. I don't know if I like my hair like this anymore. I think that makes me feel a little better. Not really. Not really. Anyways, I was on Classic Sam's stream and it was supposed to be an hour and a half and an hour and a half and I was going to record this yesterday and went on her stream and ended up being 3 hours. And so because it was 3 hours, I was going to go hang out with my mom afterwards to watch Project Runway because I told you guys I would bring you some Project Runways. I'm not lying about that. I'm trying to bring you some Project Runways, but like because of that, I could not record yesterday so I could go watch and hang out with my mom and live a life, you know. Everybody wants to live their life. Everybody wants to rule the world. So now I'm here on a Sunday and this is going to be chaotic and it's going to be crazy. And I genuinely do not know what's going to happen, but let's get started. Our first topic of the day is Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate being arrested for a second time was not on my bingo card. Legitimately not on my bingo card. But am I here for it? Absolutely. So Andrew Tate got arrested earlier this week. And if you check my Instagram, I was cackling at the outfit that this man was wearing because it was ridiculous. I was just like, what is happening? I have to show you guys this image. This is the image of the guy that you guys were all like listening to be a high value man. It's crazy. So we're going to share it on here so you guys can kind of see and be like, what was what was this? Why was this? Who was this? So is this is what Andrew Tate was wearing when he got arrested. And they're comparing it to a woman because that's 100% what it looked like. Andrew Tate got arrested in these tight capri pants, a purple blouse that dips low, and these shoes that we know like men like to wear these ankle shoes when they wear the like suit pants that are not quite long enough. And that's like the style, but definitely not with capris. And yeah, that's what Andrew Tate got arrested in, and it was fitting. It was fitting because he has been amok to like the red pill from someone else explained it to me, like Nation. I've seen videos of him and I was shocked that people really listened to him. And I was on Classic Sam's stream and we were talking about this and how people are just like really truly falling for this monstrosity, this thing that he thought that he was giving that he really wasn't giving. It was insane, to say the least. And his rhetoric has been so misogynistic for so long and so detrimental, not just to women, but to men, to the male identity, to breaking away from these stereotypes of what a man has to be. And like, he just basically told all these men that like, you deserve whatever woman and you can do whatever woman you want to a woman as long as you're a high value man. He had courses on teaching men how to get women and become a high value man. And in the past, he's been arrested and he was pardoned by our dear president. And now UK filed for him to be arrested and extradited from the country. And it's not funny because the charges that he is facing, I think there's 42 charges total. And then I don't remember how much his brother's facing, but they range from rape, sex trafficking, child pornography, and there was also like domestic violence, I believe. There's also a video of him going out right now where he's like abusing a woman, beating a woman with a belt. And it's just terrible. And some people are like, oh, well, it was consensual or it was something that they wanted. And that's just really hard for me to believe because, we talk about the BDSM culture and I've been very open about what happened to me when I went into the BDSM culture, and the person that I went into it was not prepared, did not know what he was doing, and was really just a sadist. And that's abuse. So what was going on in that situation was abuse. And it's just, there feels like a justice to this happening again. And there's no way that the president can get him out of it. And then he's posting on social media about how he doesn't have contact with the outer world. We're all like, well, how are you posting on social media if you don't have contact with the outer world? And he's kind of playing this violin and woe is me. And, I'm so lonely and they got me in solitary. And we're like, sir, I need you to know that the charges that you have against you, solitary is saving your life. I don't know, guys. I don't have the energy to like debate the nuances of it. I'm just happy that he's arrested. I'm happy that hopefully at this moment, in this point in time, we can see him for who he really is. And like, we can just end this existence. Like I just really, 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 really don't want his existence to be here anymore. He just doesn't do anything for life. He doesn't do anything for women. He's abusive towards women and he's training men to be abusive towards women. And he doesn't do anything for men because he's not really helping what's actually going on with men right now. And like that makes me pretty sad to see as well. I don't want to waste much of my time talking about him. We all know that he's a terrible human being, and I don't wish harm on a lot of people, but I'm really happy he's in jail. I'm really happy that he's being called out again, and hopefully this time it'll stick and we can realize that he is just a terrible human being that we gave a platform to because of things like the male loneliness epidemic and the belief that what we need to solve this is to force women or coerce women or fix women's brains into liking us again, instead of realizing that if you just find like the right woman for you, you don't have to coerce or force or do any of those things. There are people out there that will like you for who you are. You don't have to pretend. Like, I'm saying this to men. There are people who are out there who will like you for who you are. You do not have to pretend to get anybody. And that's where people like Andrew Tate and all these bro podcasts come in, and they just destroy it for everyone. And so I'm so happy that he's gone. The Wicked Witch is dead. This episode of Basically Unbothered is brought to you by Sister Sense Candle Co. If you're the kind of person who wants your home to smell like a haunted library, an enchanted forest, an ancient cathedral, or the coziest autumn evening imaginable, you're going to love this. Sister Sense Candle is a woman-owned Michigan fragrance studio handcrafting soy candles, perfume oils, incense, and home fragrances inspired by folklore, gothic romance, and the beauty of the natural world. Every product is made with small batches with clean burning soy wax, phthalate-free fragrance oils, and thoughtfully chosen ingredients to make scents that make everyday life feel just a little more magical. Whether you're setting the mood for your next reading session, writing your novel, or simply winding down after a long day, there's a scent waiting for you. You can shop online or find Sister Sense Candle Co. at markets, festivals, and workshops across Michigan. Be sure to check them out and tell them Basically Unbothered sent you. All right, what else? So, there also was another incident with Angel Reese and Coach Sandy Brondello during a basketball game. It was addressed and it was really sad. I watched Angel address this. I watched her, go on and say like, "Hey, I've talked to her. Never should there be a place where we can use slurs like this or anything like that. And we have to learn how to be better and things like that." And watching her make her statement, and she's, gorgeous doing it. And she's like, and very mature and very wise. And she said, "This is the first time I'm going to talk about it. And it's the last time I'm going to talk about it." But basically the incident was that there was a game. It was the Atlanta Dream versus the Toronto Tempo. And what happened is that there was a missed call on a foul or something, or the coach thought that Angel wasn't being called out for what she was doing in her actions, and she got caught on a hot mic saying that, she's a protected species. Now, this is where it gets a little convoluted because there is a commentary that explains that Brondello is from Australia. And in Australia, they say something like protected species. She said that it's a common phrase in like Australian sports to describe a player who consistently gets favorable calls from officials. But she still apologized, which I appreciate, that she should have realized the cultural differences. And that's where these things get really hard, is that there's like unintentional racism. There was unintentional racism because it's just something that's said in Australia, and it's, from what I gather, not meant to be racist. But in America, because we have such prejudice against Black people and we compare them to monkeys, that the comment of protected species is opening the floodgates for that rhetoric again. And that's why it's so difficult. And I wish we can get rid of that rhetoric. And it's really hard when the leader of our country uses that rhetoric to describe African Americans and describe African Americans who have succeeded far beyond anyone's expectations. And it's weird because, do I believe that she meant no harm? Absolutely. There are so many cultural nuances that we don't realize exist, but it is important to try to learn. And this is a way of learning. This is a way of her learning. And sometimes we do learn from mistakes. You could go to another country and do something like tipping, and they will find it deeply, deeply offensive, as if you called them a slur, or if you said something terrible about them. And that's because in those countries, that's not how they operate. They do not take tips at all, and they find it offensive. And other things like that. Some of the things that we say in America, we could not say anywhere else. It'd be truly offensive and we wouldn't know. So do I think that this is a situation where there was blatant racism? No, I think it's a situation where there are cultural differences from what happens in Australia and what happens in America. And because America has this history of referring to Black people as a species, which is a gorilla, the comment just fell flat. And I don't think that she'll say it again. But I also want us as a country to give grace sometimes. Like, sometimes things really truly aren't intentional. That doesn't mean sometimes they're not. What's the girl who got kicked off of Love Island? What is her name? Because there's so many at this point. Alana. Our girl Alana, who got kicked off of Love Island, and boo hoo, she's crying, she's crying, she's crying. Everybody's like, she would never do that. That's not her, her vibe. Well, apparently there's a video where she's out singing another rap song with mixed company, African American, and all kinds of different people. And either she almost says it or she says it again. And then we just don't have any, like, the grace that you want us to give means that you learn from your actions and then don't do it again. And the way that if I made a mistake and said a racial slur because it was in a song, the way that I would stay so far away from that part of the song. Like, I love Lil Wayne. I love Lil Wayne. I stay so far away from the F words and the F bombs, not the FUCK bombs. Y'all know what I mean if you listen to Lil Wayne. I stay so far away from them. I am so far, like my mouth shuts before it even begins. You cannot even in your mind think that I said it because it is not okay to say. Now, we didn't know that back then. I mean, we knew that back then, but it was a different time back then, which is really sad, honestly, to think of how much we allowed, how much hate we continue to like accept in society because we thought it was like colloquial terms, common slang. And I was like, no, those are really offensive words. And some people may feel like they're upset because we're more constrained. I don't. I just know that I need to work harder. For instance, I'm working on they thems. It's really difficult for me sometimes. And I'm a millennial, but it is still really difficult for me sometimes when I see a female representing person and my mind automatically goes to she and a womanhood or whatever, and they're actually they them, and I have to like correct myself. I had to do this in the um like actively correct myself in the Pages Against the Patriarchy thing. There's things that just in life we're going to have to learn. There's things in life that we're going to make mistakes on. And if we give them the grace to say, okay, we get it. We understand, you didn't mean it. That's not what you meant. Cool. Just never do it again. Just never do it again. Hopefully just please don't ever do it again. But let's get into our next topic, which is Coffee Convos. Coffee Convos is a podcast hosted by Kel Lowry and Lindsay Chrisley. It's been going on for a decent amount of time. They've won awards. From what I gather, they make like $2 million a year off of this podcast. They have like spin-off podcasts that came from this podcast. Like, it's a thing. And they recently there's been a lot going on. There was their like producer and assistant and everything, Kristen. Kristen was originally Kale's friend, and she just kind of like magically disappeared from the show. They announced that she was no longer the producer. And then there was things going on with Lindsay Chrisley, and then there was an announcement of domestic violence, and then there was an announcement of a DUI, and it's just been insane. So the podcast has kind of been all over the place. They pre-recorded episodes, and when you listen to those pre-recorded episodes, it was kind of just this episode was recorded before recent incidents happened, and therefore, they're not going to be addressing it, and please, blah 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 blah, and we'll address it whenever we're ready. And so that happened, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then in the middle of that going on, the DUI happens. And then Lindsay kind of just disappears from the podcast, and they run back old podcasts. They have Kale do podcasts by herself, and people were fussing, to me, rightfully so, because the podcast is two people. And every once in a while, having one person not be there is totally fine, but not continually. And so they finally came on and addressed it all. Basically, like it was jaw dropping. You learn about what's been going on with Lindsay and her abusive cycle that she was in with her now ex-boyfriend. That actually just got covered on last week's episode that came out on like Wednesday or Thursday. But they talk about that. They talk about how Kale wanted to like be there for her and didn't know how. And that's why, they thought that the best solution for them was to kind of just step away from it all and, step away from the tour because they're on podcast tours right now, which is, side note, really cool. Maybe one day I could be on a podcast tour. I don't know if any of you would ever want to see me on a podcast tour, but one day it could be fun. So they're addressing all of these things going on. But one of the things that stuck out to me, or there were two things. The first thing was they were talking about rebranding, and they have been talking about rebranding for years. And this is me telling you all, re-fucking brand. If I get it, when your brand is bigger, the bigger your brand is, the more you want to keep consistency. But there's something I read once that every big brand or little brand needs a refresh every like 3 years. I mean, you're not the same person you were 3 years ago. So maybe how you branded it, what you liked, what you didn't like, it doesn't look the same anymore. And rebrandings can be small, as simple as changing a font or a logo or changing the color on a logo or just, adding a little oomph to the end of it. I am a rebranding queen. I'm going to show you guys. I just rebranded my bookstore, and it was called Blake's Indie Author Bookstore. And I loved it being called Blake's Indie Author Bookstore. But recently I realized that I wanted to be, obviously it's a bookstore and it solely has indie authors in it, but I also have indie author creators. So I wanted this to be something that, we could really like look at. But I changed it from Blake's Indie Author to Blake's Indie Bookstore because what I want is I wanted to represent exactly, what my brand is, which is not just focusing on indie authors, but providing a space for indie creators, period. And that's why I changed my logo. And that's a rebrand. And I'm not big ups yet. And so I get to do that. I get to make those decisions. And that happens a lot when you are a small, brand. You get to rebrand yourself. You get to say, okay, I mean, and when we're talking about like simple things, I recently rebranded Blake Gabrielle, and it has the same like color scheme. The colors are just more muted. I'm a muted color girl. And so like I really wanted that to be reflected into Blake Gabrielle, and because I'm really embracing kind of the alt boho that I am, I wanted the colors to not feel so like vibrant and right at you, but feel more calm, but more moody, which is completely my vibe. But having them sit there and say, we've been sitting on this rebrand for 2 years, we just haven't figured out how to do it. It sucks. And I'm going to tell you guys with your business, do the fucking rebrand. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be worth it. 9 times out of 10, it's going to pop. People are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. They're so fascinating. Even if it's the smallest things, it can bring new attention to you. And it can also represent who you are as life moves on. I don't believe in keeping something the same for the rest of your life. And I think that Lindsay and Kel are coming to this recollection too, that you can't keep things the same for the rest of your life, that sometimes you're actually going to have to like rebrand. So I'm glad that they're learning this now. And I'm glad that those lessons are coming to them. They said that they might not even be called coffee combos because they really don't drink coffee anymore. And the conversations that they have now are not coffee conversations or workplace conversations. And I'm excited. This is the first podcast that got me into podcasts. I followed Kelari from 16 and Pregnant and Teen Moms. She was always my favorite. She was always one of my favorites. There was nothing that she could do on that show that was wrong to me. I mean, there were things that she did that were mistakes and missteps, but I kind of always could feel her heart, and you could see the like vulnerability and the openness in her struggles. And I always tell this to people, like, as much as we tell ourselves that we don't like messy women, we really love messy women and we really need messy women in our lives more. And she provided like a space for us to be like, okay, it's okay to be messy. It's okay for us to go down these ventures, and maybe we're not doing it right, but we're trying. And sometimes that's the best you do. She was like, for us trauma girlies, she was a good kind of representation of like, you're not getting it perfect. You're fucking up, but you're still trying every day to be better. And I really, I like that for her. there are so many things that I could say about her. So when I found out she had the podcast, I had never watched Chris Lee Knows Best. Um, it was never my personal vibe, but when I listened to the podcast, I really loved it. And then you really got to go along all of their journeys in life via podcast, which was really cool. I hope that I give you guys that a little bit when you listen to my podcast, where you feel like you are actually going along for these journeys in my life. But I'm excited for them to rebrand. They say they may keep Coffee Convos. They may not. They said that there was like a big fight around this. And one of the things I love is that they talk about how they've almost disbanded the podcast all the time. And how they have deep love and they're like sisters together, but they've always focused on the brand kind of first. And I think that that is the best way to do like a collab or, focusing on brand is maybe not doing it with your friend, but doing it with someone that you have respect for. You come together, you create this business plan. We're in this business together, and then we get along and we like each other. And then maybe we'll fall off, but we're both still really connected to this brand. And so when things don't go our way or things are just like mishappening or whatever, we can still focus on the brand. And that's what I love about their situation is that they're honest about we don't always like each other. We fight with each other. We don't agree. And we need that more in female friendships in general to be like, we disagree and it's okay. I'm learning that. I had a conversation with another person that I work with podcast wise, and I was so like insecure and sensitive. And I was like, "Are you mad at me because like do you not want to like work with me anymore because I'm so different and we have different beliefs or whatever?" And she's so sweet, and she was like, "No, that's crazy. Like I don't want all my friends to agree with me," and I love that. And it's also hard for me and it's a learning lesson for me because I have not really experienced that. And one of the things that I'm loving and learning is that I can grow into friendships. When some of my friendships, when they formed, it was like kismic. It was automatic. It went from like, we don't know each other to we're best friends. Um, and I am no longer in a place where I feel that that's comfortable for me, but I feel I'm really enjoying growing into my friendships, even at work. Realizing that you really care about these people more and you're really growing and I didn't push it and there it's a modern day friendship. It's not like your friendships that you formed when you were teenagers and it was all or nothing. Like there's nuances to it and I'm enjoying that and a lot of people have been you need to make more friends, you need to make more friends and when you've gone through traumatic experiences, it's really hard to and jumping into friendships just isn't what works for me anymore. And having people that give me the grace as well really makes me really happy to see. But the second thing that they talked about, which makes me really sad, and which is why I'm so weary about friendships, is the reason why Kristen has stepped away from the podcast. And basically, Kale starts and she says that, Kristen, she heard a couple of things that were disconcerting to her and she did some research and she looked into a couple of things and then she was really confused and she reached out to Kristen to ask her like, "Hey, what's going on?" And first of all, I love that. I love the concept of not immediately jumping to you're the enemy, you're wrong, and being like, "Oh, what's going on? Like, is there a disconnect here? How do we fix this? Please tell me this is not true." It's kind of giving Selena vibes. If you guys don't remember, Selena Quintanilla, she had her like manager, Yolanda, who we all hate, and she noticed that there was discrepancies in money and things like that. And instead of just booting her out, she wanted to talk to her. And even after she booted out, the thing that actually ended her life was that she went to talk to Yolanda again because she was so in disbelief that her friend could do this to her. And that is kind of what Kel and Lindsay are going through right now because from their accounts or from what other people are thinking, there was money being stolen. They found out that she was reporting information about Lindsay to her family, which she's estranged with. Um, and there was also, some of the other people who worked in the Coffee Convos. Um, I'm trying to figure out what her podcast universe name is. I think it's originally was Killer Kale. I can't remember what it is now. But she was going around to other people that work for them and talking shit about Kale. And that was the hardest part because Kale talked about like having this feeling of like, did you really hate me that much? Like what did I do? What did I do to deserve to be hated that much? And like, if you really didn't like me, why didn't you quit? Why wouldn't you come tell me? Why wouldn't it, there are opportunities where you could have. And that's kind of the sad thing about this. And that's why friendships are really hard. Because friendships require you to put trust in someone. And it's different, than like, it's almost like you trust your friends more than you would trust your partner sometimes. And your friends, when you go through different partners, your friends are like constant. And so there's a level there that like nobody can reach. And for someone who you trusted, who was your friend and then became your assistant and then became your producer and was working on all these projects with you and managing your money and all of these things. And then you find out that they betrayed you. Like you may never trust anyone the same again. Like that's just kind of like the reality of it. You may never trust someone the same again. And that's really sad. I don't wish that on anyone. I don't wish for anyone to go through that. I've gone through that many times in my life. Even recently, I've gone through friends not being there or feeling betrayed or all kinds of things and having to figure it out on my own. I don't wish that. I don't wish that on anybody, period. Like I really truly don't. And I hate that she had to go through it and she had to experience it. And I'm excited to see where Coffee Combos goes, what it's going to be rebranded as. I've been an avid listener, a little on and off because sometimes I take breaks from podcasts, but I've been an avid listener. And so I hope that it all works out. But hopping off of podcasts to take a break to get back to podcasts, let's talk about Soul. Okay. We talked about her last week. This week she got another wig install. It's still blonde. It still doesn't fit her. It looks better on her. And you could tell, especially because she's having like her boobs are like up to the sky, that she's really is trying to lean into this Jessica Rabbit, but blonde, but like don't. Um, and I don't understand. Black women are beautiful and Black women can do many awesome things with their hair. I'm actually considering maybe getting like a little boho thing for my hair for the end of the summer. I don't really know yet, but like that's a thing I'm considering. I just think, doing new things with your hair is cool. I haven't really had the chance to experiment with my hair as much. Although I stay cutting it. I stay cutting it. But there's something so confident. Like my short hair era, I loved. There's something so beautiful about like accepting your face just the way it is. Like, this is my face, guys. You either like it or you don't. This is all you get. And there's a beauty in that. And I am actually really concerned about Soul and her actions and not just the makeover, although let's be clear, we women do makeovers for glow ups and for we're feeling real down about ourselves. And we know that Soul had a really hard time in the villa. And originally she was going to expose everything about her time in the villa, which felt really weird. But now it's reported that she might not even like show up to reunion But it's clear that the rejection that she experienced, I don't want to say clear. In my opinion, the rejection that she experienced in that villa has deeply affected her. And this is why everybody's like, she's so confident. No, she's not. She's actually really insecure. And this is coming from an insecure girl who can exude confidence really well. Um, she's actually probably really struggling because a confident girl in the villa, would come out confident. And I'd hate to say it, but Kinsey is a pretty good example of a confident girl in the villa, although she had her challenges. Like, she was upset when Zach didn't like her and he said he doesn't normally go for blondes and everything like that. And she's like, I'm just not going to talk to him. Everybody was like, that's so childish. It wasn't childish. It was very mature for her. Like, I'm not going to entertain this. I don't want to have a conversation about this. I'm not going to let anything affect who I am or my energy. I'm just going to keep it pushing. You chose not to like me. That's your choice. Let's move on. And Soul didn't exhibit that. She really, really, really harped on the fact that they didn't like her. It's not funny, but like she did. She really, really harped on the fact that they didn't like her. They didn't pull her for chats. They weren't giving her any chances. She was upset that she couldn't upset the environment around her. And that's concerning, right? If I walk into a room, and I've said this before, if I walk into a room and everybody's coupled up, even if it's fucking Love Island and I'm going there to be a bombshell, first of all, I'm going to pull people for chats. I'm going to talk to everybody. Let's that be clear. I'm going to talk to everybody, not because I want to ruin their couples, but I'm going to talk to everybody. And I will go up to the girls and be like, and this has happened on Love Island, where the bombshell goes up to the girls and says, hey guys, this is nothing against you. I'm trying to do the same thing that you guys do. It's all respect. I'm a respected, but I'm going to be pulling everybody for a chat so I can get to know them better. That's all she had to do. She thought instead that she was going to be so bombshell-like and so damaging that when she got there and she wasn't, it really fucked with her. And now it feels like she's trying to be something that she's not. Especially with these wig installs, and the first one did nothing, and the second one, she's probably going to change as well because it's not her. And obviously we don't know her story and everything, but we recognize with her energetically, we loved that she was so confident or appeared to be so confident with her short hair. It fit her, it fit her personality. And I just want to like hug her and, if it was appropriate, be like, hey, it's totally okay. Like it's legitimately totally okay if you don't feel comfortable right now, but you don't have to change everything about you to be this image of beauty that we put out into society, right? Like that, I cut my hair. My hair was super fucking long and I'd always wanted like Rapunzel long hair because I thought if I had Rapunzel long hair, that would make me the most beautiful in the game. It didn't. Let's be very clear. It didn't. I love myself more now. And will I go back to long hair one day? I thought about like, oh, it would be cool. Like I said, if I did like some boho things and got that like the little squigglies that everybody's getting in their hair right now, that would be cool. But my hair feels like my vibe. And that's something that's the most important to me is being able to live and exist as who I am. And I think she really internalized this rejection. And I don't even know if it was really rejection. I just think that it was, these aren't the people for you. And like, Sincere did his big one. And what Sincere did really sucks. And we as women often compare ourselves to the women who get accepted. And, it was clear that Soul did not feel accepted in the villa. And she's trying to figure out a way to rationalize that. And from what her friend said, who I guess apparently isn't her friend anymore, that's something that she's gone through in life. And if you've gone through that in life and then you have to go through it in the public eye, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. Like, that's just the truth. All right. We've been talking for so long and now it's time to talk about some real shit. Quick pause, because if you love dark stories that don't flinch, Olympic War isn't a soft love story. It's violent, it's chosen, and it cost everything. Through war, betrayal, and survival, Moonstone fights for devotion that refuses to die. This is a Black, multicultural dystopian series about power, sacrifice, and what rises from the ashes. Olympic War and Phoenix War. Read them wherever books are sold. 2 people dropped podcast episodes this week, guys, or last week, guys. 2 people. None of the people we wanted podcast. Guys, we've gotten not a single podcast from the people we wanted podcast from. I want podcasts from Kata. I want podcasts from Anaya. I want podcasts from Trinity. I really, really want a podcast from Melanie. And we didn't get that. Instead, we got a podcast from Kenny that nobody asked for, and he thought was going to like resurrect his career and just actually plummeted it. And then we got a podcast YouTube channel from Casey and TT. And there's been I talked about how much hatred I got on my threads last week. But this week, it's also just been crazy. And I am happy that more people are kind of seeing in this now. So first of all, Casey and TT apparently might not have like photo shoot options, or maybe they've turned them all down because they want control. And let me tell you, the worst thing that you can try to do in your life is have control. I don't have control of my hair right now. It looks like this. I hate it. I don't have control over it though. I chose to wait a week to get my locks retwisted. C'est la vie. But the last thing that we can have in life is control. We're just not going to have it. But they're trying to replicate it. So instead of being in a photo shoot in a magazine or anything like that, we're just waiting for the opportunities. They're just taking it for themselves. So they do this photo shoot of themselves. Beautiful photo shoot, but it was just giving a little egotistical. Like, we didn't really want this level of production from you guys. Honestly, we just really wanted to see you live in real life. That's all I've been like seeing. Kata FaceTiming Zach Wow in a drive-through, or Trinity and Bryce and Melanie hanging out, or the comments that they're putting on like Anaya. That's what we really, because we were so into your lives for 6 weeks. We're kind of still living there. And it's, it's a common thing that the Love Island cycle doesn't end till after the reunion, because we're supposed to be getting interviews and podcasts and all of this. They're kind of like manufacturing this, and they want to be seen a certain way so bad that they're making it worse for themselves. And so let's get into this podcast, because I listened to it, and again, it was not giving what I think they thought that it was giving. There's a couple things that I did notice that they did. First of all, they asked each other questions, and these weren't even questions that like were fan questions. They just came up with these questions themselves and asked themselves these questions, which is not a good way to do interviews, because interviews, you're in your own world and you get stuck in your own head and you can't see things a certain way. When you go to interviews, they ask you questions that can help you clear up what's going on, because they're in that verse and you're not. That can bring out your honesty and truth. Like, there's a reason why people go on these podcasts to do interviews, other than, just the publicity. It really can help clear up a lot of things. Look at who this podcast, right? But for them, it really felt like they were spending all the time skirting around the questions without really diving deep into it. They would talk about like, yeah, we were in the villa, and they were very concerned about how they looked in the villa and how much like screen time they would get. But they wouldn't answer anything, they never really talked about their relationship in Casa. They were like, yeah, we had a lot of good chats in Casa. They never addressed how Casey moved in Casa, the things that Casey said in Casa. They talked about the fire pit, but they never really addressed how the fire pit happened other than the fact that like we just felt like it was too much and then there's no reason to be yelling and that upset about all of this and it, which is such a like deflective thing. She's upset because you betrayed her. She's upset because she felt something intuitively about you and she ignored it. She's upset because she had a man who was going to love her. Thankfully we got him back, but she had a man who was going to love her and she chose you because she was trying to be loyal to you because your biggest like core wound in that villa was not being chosen. And she wanted to make sure you always felt chosen. And like, that's the part that they don't address it at all. In fact, the only thing that they do say is that, KC was feeling as if he was super depressed and didn't want to get out of bed or that. And man, let me tell you, nobody wants to hear about the person who did the wrong being depressed about having accountability for doing the wrong. I'm just, nobody wants that. Nobody does. You did the wrong. You messed up. What you feel is the guilt and shame for you messing up was what makes you human. We all feel guilt and shame for messing up. And, eventually we have to let ourselves off of that like pitfall, but like you should feel upset for what you did because you did them wrong. You did Anaya wrong. And I'm not going to feel bad about you because you struggle with that. And honestly, anytime they talked about their mental struggles, it wasn't serious. They didn't take anything serious. They kept reiterating, we're human, we're human. And this hurts. But then they would contradict themselves and be like, oh, well, actually, we're human and this hurt our feelings. But I've been through so much rejection that it couldn't hurt my feelings anymore. And there was a lot of contradictive things that they did throughout this whole podcast. It was interesting because they started the podcast talking about what they do. And this was like a very manipulative move. That was like the best interview like thing they did. They started the podcast talking about how they're like helpers of the community. Casey's a CNA and TT's a hustler who babysits and takes care of elderly people and all of that. And they're just humans and we're good people. But then they don't even realize people, I say this all the time, people will expose themselves if you just give them enough room to do it. They'll hang themselves if you give them enough rope. The world has given Casey and TT enough rope. They're not trusting anyone to kind of pull it in for them. They're just dangling and they just keep messing up because we're supposed to be feeling bad because they're these philanthropic people and they just care so much about this. And then Casey literally said one of the reasons why he thought about becoming a CNA was because of the scrubs. Like that was almost verbatim from his mouth because of the scrubs. Not because he wanted to help people, not because he wanted to do right, because of the scrubs. And it's like crazy. They really truly live in this delusional world. One of the things they kept talking about was like how their own people, Black people, treated them poorly. And one thing that they don't recognize is the like irony of this is that they're getting this hate, whether they feel it's deserved or not, because they treated a Black woman poorly. They're getting this hate, and I saw like TikToks with video receipts of, Casey dogging Anaya. Like he spent his like last week before Acosta dogging her, calling her a grandma because she wasn't humping on him. She wasn't giving him enough kisses. And I hope he watched the way that she was with Carl was completely different than the way that she was with him. But like, you're getting hate from your people because you gave hate to your people. We don't want to see a Black man disrespect a Black woman just because he's with another Black woman. That doesn't make it okay. We don't forget what you guys did. And some people are going to be like, well, what did TT do? Well, first of all, TT laughed at Anaya when she was off crying and they were, trying to pinch us. I just think that we're more mature. No, the reason why Casey likes you is because you both are, in fact, very immature. And then when you're watching movie night, all of the scenes where you're like making out and it's painful and it's painful to Anaya, you're biting and enjoying it. Like, come on, please. Give me a break somewhere. Like, you're mad because you're getting hate online for things that you did. And like, fair, some of the things you don't deserve the hate for, like they mention classism a lot, which is clear. Again, the things you talk about the most are usually the things that are like bugging you the most, which means that it's not the show, it's something that you are going through. So the fact that they mention classism a lot shows an inner wound that they really feel affected about their upbringing and how they didn't have money. And what they really want is the clout that they think that being in a higher class will give them. And it's crazy because they treat it as if they're the only ones getting hate when everybody's getting hate. And they're not the only Black people that was on the podcast. They're probably also getting hate too in some way or form. Your hate is just bigger because of the way that you acted. And that was the thing that I just wish that they would address. There was never like, we fucked up. At least from where I saw, because I couldn't listen to the end of it. It was just too crazy. There was never just a, damn, maybe that wasn't okay. None of that. None of that existed. And what is clear to me from that podcast or YouTube episode or whatever is that what they really want is class. They want to be seen higher up. They're trying to prove themselves to people they don't really have to prove themselves to. They want to be famous. They made comments about how they didn't get more screen time, how the world was robbed from seeing them in that light. The like audacity, the bloodacity to be like, the world was robbed. What was the world robbed from? We got to see what we got to see and we enjoyed what we got to see. What would have changed our lives significantly if we didn't see you and TT have more chats? Like, please tell me, what would our lives have been changed for the better because we didn't see you guys have more chats? And that was, we had so many good chats. We talked all the time and they never showed our chats like that. And we didn't get enough screen time. And then they go as far as to say that towards the end of it, they felt like they couldn't trust people, which is so weird. Seeing that they spend a lot of time chatting with other people and talking to other people. And Casey, he switches it up and he says that him and Corbin were so close and that was his boy. But then at the same time, he says that right after the fire pit, he felt so alone and they felt like they were being judged and ostracized, which is weird again, because the girls made a significant effort even after that fire pit to come to them. Like, that's the hard part about this, the kind of like Delulu thing that's going on, is that the girls made an effort to come to you and be like, hey, talk it out, hash it out. You were on live TV saying, I really love you girls. So either you're lying or you were faking it. Neither is something that we want to support. Like, it's either you're lying or you're faking it. And we don't want either of those things. And, with Casey, I remember right after I called him like the problematic men. You and Sincere and Corbin were all sitting down, laying down and laughing. And you were saying that you felt like you were being ostracized and nobody was talking to you. It was so tense in the villa. Like, maybe the girls weren't talking to you, but you deserve. That's the part that just blows my mind. You deserved it. You deserved for the girls to not talk to you. You deserve for the girls to treat you differently because the way that you moved was so diabolical, and the way that you treated Anaya and pretended to be this person that you weren't really. And now we're really starting to see this because you're calling out Corbin, but you're not calling out Corbin. You're saying that all these people were your friends and you had really formed these bonds, but then you go on podcasts and say that you don't. This is why you should have somebody else interview you. Because when you start making these mistakes, they can start helping you connect them. So if you got interviewed by something and you said you felt alone, and I'll be like, well, wait, you did say that Corbin was really there for you, that like that was your friend and everything like that. And, how does that feel? Do you still feel that way? Was there something that happened? Someone could actually get into the nitty gritty of these things that could have helped you. But instead, you didn't trust anybody. You decided that you didn't want anyone else to tell your story. So you didn't really tell your story and it failed. I don't know if they're going to release anything more on this channel. I just talked about how I don't think that you should do joint ventures with people that you are in relationships with. You definitely shouldn't do joint ventures with people who you are in relationships with off of a reality TV show that you've only known for like 2-3 weeks. But that's here nor there. What it's going to show is that your relationship feels more like a business relationship, a partnership, and not really a relationship. That was the first wild podcast. And then we get to the second wild podcast because what were y'all doing? What were y'all doing? Indie authors are out here building worlds, breaking rules, and telling stories you won't find on the bestsellers list. And not only can indie authors do it just as good as published authors, but they can often do it better. On Indie Ink Podcast, we interview indie authors every month about their books, their process, and what keeps them going when no one's watching.
One of the best pieces of advice I received, once you start getting negative reviews, it means that your book is reaching outside of your target audience. And when she said that, I thought that was such a wonderful way to look at it.
Jean-Paul Sartre, he's French, with No Exit says that hell is other people. Like, to be in hell is to be like with other people. The thesis of this book, or like what I thought about when I thought about like what would be like the ultimate hell for me personally.
If you love stories behind the stories, this podcast is for you. Check out Indie Ink Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. Kenny Races Rodriguez decides that he wants to get on the Journey podcast. Now, I looked up the Journey podcast, and it's supposed to be like a podcast that's supposed to be influential and inspirational and talking about mental health and things like that. And that was an angle that Kenny definitely spun in this. Now, I listened to 90% of this podcast, and you're going to be like, Gabi, why don't you listen to the whole thing? If you guys stop being stupid and like terrible on these podcasts, maybe I can make it through. But I've listened to a lot of men lie to me in my life. I don't need to continue doing that on a podcast. I'm just saying. But he was really stringing along this mental health thing and how his experience on Love Island affected his mental health. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, he repeats things over and over and over again, and he contradicts himself. The first thing of things to note was him talking about how he was in boarding school and he had to code switch for boarding school. And like, yeah, all of us do. But the way that he mentioned it made me feel as if he got very good at being what he expected other people wanted and needed, which is a core wound. And I think that that's like a unintentional indicator of like what really is going on with Kenny and what's, even to the point where someone just noticed that Kenny is only doing content in Spanish because he knows that America's not going to fuck with him. So now he's only doing content in Spanish, and everybody's like, the switch up is real. And that's because he's given up on people in America, and he's just going to code switch again to the Hispanic community. And that's really sad. And it's sad because in this podcast, Kenny does mention the conversation about race, and he said that he would never say like racist comments, that he has Black family, ancestry. He has Black friends. The sad part is that he never says that he's Black. And to be clear, if you have Black ancestry, I just want to bring it to your attention. And he also mentions like I have darker skinned family members, which is, I don't know if he feels that because his skin is so light that he is not Black, but his actions on this show and his actions on this podcast and his actions in life is actually to me really Black coded, or minority coded, because code switching is a thing that most minorities learn how to do. Is something that we do to make ourselves more palatable in mixed company or in company where we are the minority. So I would code switch at work, and not because there's something inherently wrong with me or not because I spoke a certain way, but it's because I knew I needed to. And code switching can affect your mentality really, really deeply. I sometimes think that it can start to be like a personality disorder where you begin to lose who you are, your sense of self. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to really like take everything back in a certain way and be more of myself, because I was code switching for a very long time and that affected my mentality severely. Like I was taught to code switch even before it came into the business world. I was taught to code switch. When you go to these people's house, you have to act differently. My friends taught me to code switch because I was a tomboy and they didn't like that I was a tomboy and they wanted me to be more feminine. And then so I had to act more feminine. And those companies of men, like it can be really damaging. And so I think that he unintentionally exposed something that's really going on with him, and why he is really doing all of this is that there's something in him that switches who he is for attention, to get people to like him, and maybe manipulatively, to get what he wants. That would be indicative of someone who has a personality disorder. I'm not going to name them. You could borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality. There's so many. But I would say from my experience, that is something that I've seen in someone who has borderline personality disorder. And we usually hear about borderline personality disorder in women. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in men. But when he gets more into the podcast, he talks about how he was originally sought out for Love Island. They reached out to him and he was just graduating and had to decide between doing Love Island and his career. And he decided to do his career. This is really important because the next thing he says is that a year later into his career that he was like, I'm so in love with and I want to go back to on Behind the Villa, and like made it seem like he was very situated in this career. He had only been in for a year. He sought out Love Island and asked if he could come on. He also mentioned that if he would have been an original cast, he thinks that everything would have been better, which is people blowing up their heads. Kata was an original cast. We love her. Miguel was an original cast. We love him. Carl was an original cast. We love him. Like it really, like some part of it does have to do with you being original cast, but most of it just has to do with being you. There's another contradiction that he says when he says that in school and in life, he's a social butterfly, but then he talks about being on Love Island and living after Love Island and being with Janae and saying that, she was the one I wanted to be in the spotlight, but he didn't. And it was, again, contradicting. So what are you? Are you a social butterfly or do you not want it? Like, I'm not a social butterfly. I can be perceived that way sometimes because I'm an ambivert and I could be outgoing, but I'm introverted. Most times when you talk to my friends, they'll be like, yeah, you see Tiffany at a bar. She will not talk to you. I have no desire at all to talk to anybody. I'm there to hang out with my friends. Like outside of that, I'm good. But those are things that he struggled with. There was a lack of accountability of his performance. even from Casa and him, downplaying and be like, well, Janae and I weren't even together for that long. And I didn't really understand why she was so upset. And then she was yelling and that really upset me, which is frustrating because what he's doing is he's building this narrative against Janae, which is the angry Black woman. And fuck me if I can get away from people trying to continue this rhetoric of the angry Black woman and how hard women actually have to do to control their emotions and their feelings so they aren't portrayed that way. I have to do it all the time. When I go shopping and somebody fucks up my stuff or something was supposed to be all, like 10% off and is not 10% off, even though I know I know how it works. And if it's labeled 10% off, you have to give it to me off and you don't, then this literally happened at Ulta once. Obviously, I want to go off. Obviously, I want to demand fair treatment for myself, but I can't because if I get upset, it's going to turn into a whole different thing. It's going to mean something different. And my actions, whether I like them or not, don't just represent me. They represent Black women, Afro-Caribbean women, period. And I'm very aware of that. And so usually it was $20, whatever. I'm going to count that as a loss. I'm never going to that one again and keep it moving. Him doing this rhetoric of her being an angry Black woman when anyone ever talked about is just how happy and easygoing Janae really is was really frustrating for me. It was something that I really didn't appreciate and didn't really like. He then gets into talking about like the beginning of the relationship and that him and Janae were so supportive of each other, beginning of Outside the Villa, and they were together, and he mentions this a couple of times about how he never expected to put her to put him in a bad light. And that was one of the things that they had always agreed to, that they wouldn't put them in a bad light. And this again, to me, is him exposing what he's really upset about, which is his image. He's not remorseful for what he said or did to Janae. I don't even know if he's scared for it to come out anymore. What he's really more upset about, he's not upset that she left him. He's upset that she exposed him. He's not apologetic for the things that he said. He's apologetic because he got caught. And that's something that he unintentionally put out in this podcast when he kept saying that he didn't want to be put in a bad light. He would never do it to her. He can't understand why she did it to him. And it's just like, when you disrespect someone, you don't get to control how they deal with that, right? If they continue to choose to hide your indiscretions, that's them. But if you do a level of disrespect, what you're being accused of, you don't get to control how the fuck she handled it. Like, you legitimately just don't. And I don't care if, he mentioned that she was so into this image, and that's where he tried to play up the shy guy again. Although he would then go back to, I'm a social butterfly, but he was like, it was all about like cameras, and we had to do this for the camera. We had to do that for the camera. We had to show up for the camera. And we would have a fight, and then she would turn around and be like, okay, we have to record this. And he was saying how that was really exhausting for him, and I get it. But to me, Janae is about her coins. She's always been about her coins. If you've asked her about that, she will tell you she's about her coins. And it seems like even if they were struggling, even if they were fighting, she knew that she had quotas that she had to make. She knew there were things that they had to do, and she wanted to meet that. There was another thing that he said that he felt emasculated by her, which is just, once again, this is not like, the things that Kenny said are so Black coded, Black male coded, I want to say, because I don't want all of you guys to think it's all of you. It's not all of you, but Black male coded. And he refuses to acknowledge that he's a Black male. Kenny, you are a Black man. Just fucking accept it. You literally are doing the same shit. But like him saying that he made her feel emasculated and she was in control, and she was probably the one that people wanted to see more in the brand deals. And she was probably the one, like, he probably couldn't get a lot of solo things without her, which then made him feel worse about himself, which then made him resent her, which probably leads into the messages that you were sending your friends because you resented her because she was getting more attention than you, and you felt like she was controlling the relationship or controlling your professional relationship that we see on screen, and you didn't like that. And it was just, I get it. Like, dude, I get it. It's hard, but like, suck it the fuck up or leave the relationship. And he talks about this, and he says that he wanted to leave the relationship, and he mentions things that Janae has already debunked, and Janae has been pissed. He's said things that she like tried to break up with him for 2 hours and then was like, how does that make you feel? And she would beg for him back. Janae went on live and was like, honey, I never begged anybody back. Like, what do I look like begging somebody back? And it's really weird that we're not getting the same thing, but we're going to lean on the side of Janae, not just because I believe all women, but also because you are lying even on this podcast. How can we trust what you say? Janae has never lied from what we know. And he lied about how long they dated on Beyond the Villa. And he talks about Beyond the Villa. On Beyond the Villa, they had like what I thought was their 1-year anniversary. Maybe it was their 6-month anniversary. Let's see, their 9-month anniversary. They celebrated their 9-month anniversary on Behind the Villa, and he said they were only together for 6 months. Once again, another thing. Speaking of Beyond the Villa, he talks about how being on a reality TV show was so jarring for him and it was so traumatic. And then he says he signed up for Beyond the Villa. Now, remember, Cordell was in a couple episodes of Beyond the Villa, but he was off doing his own thing. Kenny could have as well. Kenny could have said, I'm going to let this be more PPG. I'm, not as confident. I don't really want all the screen time, which is what he's trying to say. But which is weird because he talks about how Beyond the Villa was bad. He talks about how Love Island was bad. But then he goes on to Telemundo Big Brother. You can't say that you don't want to be in the public eye and you want to just go back to your normal job and continue to try to put yourself in the public light. You can't say that you hate it and then do everything to show that that's actually what you want. It's okay to say you want to be popular. It's okay to say you want celebrity. It's okay to say that you want this life. Like, no one is going to blame you. In fact, more people would probably understand. Freaking Kim Kardashian has come out and said, I would have done anything to be famous. I would have done anything to be famous. And we already knew that, but like, just be honest. Just be honest. And, again, Beyond the Villa, he mentions that he wants to be the man in a relationship. He wanted to be treated with kindness and care. And you can see his mask slip. And it's just, ugh. He also mentions that, like, then they get talking about, like, the actual episode, right? And he says that at this point, they had broken up and they were operating more as business partners. Which is weird because what people saw, what was it, the day before these things come out was him eating, him being on his phone, recording her. Like, there's this conversation of she was trying to force me to do it, but you were on your phone recording her, hanging out with you and eating all this food. You were an active participant in this. No one was holding a gun to your head. No one was doing this. If you wanted to be business partners, sure, there's a way that you could have been about it. You could have just shown up at it. Or again, I watched the podcast. It says you don't get brownie points for staying in a relationship you didn't want to be in. Like, no woman wants a man to stay in a relationship that they don't want to be in. And then he gets mad at PPG and he says that this story that came from PPG, because he loves Black women, he appreciates Black women. There was things that were said that were generalizing in it, but it really wasn't that bad. And he's upset that she went through her phone and what we're getting in the news is biased because it came from PPG. And we're just like, dude, shut up. Oh my gosh. It was just, you could really tell the Delulu. We don't even want to get through the fake emotions of him crying and it was so performative. Somebody get him what is it? What's the podcast award? I forget a Webby. Get him a Webby award for best acting on a podcast, because let me tell you, this man was like, and then I was just like, we're all like, and he's crying and we're confused and it's like coming out of place and everything was just so weird about this episode. And even in his retelling, he tries to like make it seem like he was the innocent one and Janae was the villain and he just got caught up in all of this. And we just got a week of people just not taking accountability for who they are, even to the point where he said something like, I can't control that people choose not to see who I am. Like it's a choice. People aren't choosing not to see who you are. They see them the way that they see you. It's not a choice. Like again, we're going back to the manipulative control thing. He thinks that he has the control, and if he can just control things, then people can choose to like him again because he was likable in the beginning, and he can't understand why he's not likable now. And he is continuously trying to be likable in the media. For someone who went on Love is Blind and said he didn't like the media attention, Beyond the Villa said he didn't like the media attention, and the Telemundo Big Brother and said he didn't like the media attention, you would think eventually you would stop trying to put yourself in the media. You know, you said on Beyond the Villa to Miguel that you really wish that you could just go back to your normal job. Then do it. Then do it. Go back to your normal job. Like, nothing's stopping you. Nothing's stopping you. He's talking about he's getting death threats. Then you can get out of the media. Why do you keep putting yourself in spotlights that you don't want to be in? Like, if you don't want to be in this, if you don't like the way that it is, get out of it. But what you want is something so much bigger than that. You think that this media is going to give you validation, that what's happening in the media is going to give you something that you've been missing in your life that you feel like you need. You're looking for it in the media and in the attention. And when you don't get the positive attention, you're upset. You think that something's wrong. And it sucks. It sucks that this is happening. It sucks that, Janae let him off easy. And Janae said it, and we all agree Janae let him off easy because he sent her a cease and desist to not share the text messages because they're that bad. And he even talks about how upset he was that he went in her phone. And then he was like, oh, if you're going to go through my phone, I'm going to go through your phone and see all the things you say to your friends. And he tried to lie and say that he was calling police on her because she physically attacked him, which again, damaging to the women's sphere. Like, what is going on? And Janae already debunked that too. It was like, I was actually the one that said, I'm going to call the police. And you filed a cease and desist, which means that you truly think that there's something very damaging and no screenshots. And you're upset that your mask got taken off. And this goes back again to what I was talking about, one of the things from Garma. And she mentioned about like the devil is not the person who looks bad in front of you all the time. It's the one that pretends to be good. Like that's Kenny. And now he's so upset that his mask is slipped and we've seen the inner him and we've seen all of this darkness and the bad things that he does, that he just wants to portray to the world that he's a good guy again. And he went on this podcast because he thought that like, hey, I go on this podcast and like, I can talk about my mental health and I can talk about how damaging this was to my mental health and people will feel for me. The same thing that Casey and TT did on a podcast this week as well. They're using like their mental health as a weapon to force people to be nice to them without taking accountability for what they did. And I'm not here for it. As an advocate for, mental health, I'm not here for it. I can't go, oh, I'm depressed, so don't hold me accountable for my actions. No. I'm still held accountable for my actions, whether they were depressed actions or not depressed actions. They're still on me. That's the fact. Now, can I let myself off a little bit and give myself some grace because it wasn't who I know I am? Yeah. But do I expect other people to do that? No. Absolutely not, because they don't have the inner knowledge that I have. And this like expectation that people are going to see us the way that we want to be seen is never going to happen. But more that when Casey's mask slips and Kenny's mask slip and TT's mask slip, and they're mad that we're seeing the real them and they can't keep this mask up anymore, they try to weaponize their mental health to try to humanize them and get them people to see that, oh, they're just people hurting. And I just wish that we could just like not stop using mental health issues or people worrying about treating your mental health as a way to skate away from your abuse. You did it. You did the action. At the end of the day, that's, that's the truth of the matter. You did it. So I don't know what to tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could leave you with anything, I could leave you with this. Please, please, please take accountability for your actions. Like the best way to get out of this fear, even if it doesn't get out of everybody's head in the media, the best way is to take accountability for your actions and own up to your shit. Legitimately, truly, I mean that. Best way. Outside of that, this is a long episode and I love you all for being here with me. Thank you all who joined me live because that was so exciting for us. But other than that, it's about time for us to GTFO and I'm going to go home, edit this and get this ready to come out tomorrow and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. Thank you all for watching and I will see you next time. Gabi Gabs Podcast.